Come close and open your heart to what I'm about to share. I speak today to those navigating life's complex terrain, experiencing both blessings that warm your heart and challenges that test your faith. I see your internal struggle between focusing on what's missing and recognizing what's present, between dwelling on problems and celebrating provisions. The battle between complaint and gratitude isn't merely about positive thinking, but about fundamental perception that shapes how you experience every dimension of life. Today, I offer divine wisdom about gratitude's transformative power. For I am not only the giver of good gifts, but the one who transforms lives through the revolutionary power of thanksgiving. Gratitude deficiency manifests in various forms, and I see the specific patterns that shape your experience. Many struggle with comparison focus, measuring your circumstances against others who seem more blessed, your possessions against cultural standards of success, or your progress against internal expectations of achievement. This constant measuring against external benchmarks creates persistent dissatisfaction, regardless of actual blessings present. Others battle entitlement thinking, subtle belief that certain blessings should automatically occur. Specific prayers deserve immediate answering, or particular life quality represents basic right rather than gracious gift. This entitlement transforms what could be appreciated as gift into expected minimum, shifting focus from gratitude for what exists to frustration over unmet expectations. Some face negativity bias, neurological tendency to notice, remember, and focus on problems, threats, and shortcomings, while filtering out positive elements that don't trigger threat assessment systems. This attentional bias creates perceptual distortion, where 5 positive experiences get overshadowed by a single negative event that captures disproportionate mental and emotional energy. Many experience gratitude suppression, belief that thankfulness amid difficulty somehow denies problems reality, minimizes legitimate suffering, or demonstrates inauthentic spirituality that ignores life's genuine challenges. This either-or thinking creates false dichotomy between honest acknowledgement of pain and grateful recognition of blessings that remain present even within difficult circumstances. These gratitude barriers affect every dimension of your being. Emotionally, ingratitude generates complex emotional landscape. Disappointment, focusing on unmet expectations. Anxiety, scanning for potential threats. Resentment, comparing your situation unfavorably with others. And general dissatisfaction, permeating even objectively positive circumstances. This emotional backdrop colors all experience with subtle negativity that diminishes joy without obvious external cause. Physically, gratitude deficiency affects bodily systems through chronic stress activation. When attention constantly focuses on threats, problems, and deficiencies, nervous system maintains vigilance posture designed for emergency situations rather than sustainable functioning. This persistent stress posture disrupts sleep, compromises immunity, affects digestion, and depletes energy reserves designed for occasional emergencies rather than constant activation. Relationally, ingratitude creates subtle relational toxicity, measuring others' contributions against expectations rather than appreciating genuine offerings, focusing on unmet needs rather than recognizing sincere efforts, and maintaining running inventory of disappointments rather than acknowledging consistent support. These patterns gradually erode relationship quality while creating negative spiral, where declining appreciation generates declining investment. Spiritually, gratitude absence significantly affects divine relationship. Prayer becomes predominantly request-focused rather than thanksgiving-balanced. Worship shifts from authentic appreciation to performance or petition. Scripture reading highlights primarily promises awaiting fulfillment rather than faithfulness already demonstrated. The relationship gradually transforms from loving communion into utilitarian arrangement, focused on provision rather than provider. Most significantly, ingratitude fundamentally alters perception itself, not just thoughts about reality, but actual experienced reality. Without deliberate gratitude intervention, neurological negativity bias increasingly filters incoming information, creating perception increasingly dominated by problems, threats, and deficiencies regardless of objective circumstances. This perceptual distortion then affects everything from momentary happiness to major life decisions. Beloved, hear this perspective-shifting truth. Gratitude isn't just positive emotion or religious obligation, but transformative practice that fundamentally alters how you experience life itself. Throughout Scripture, I consistently emphasize thanksgiving, not as peripheral add-on, but as central practice reorienting perception, renewing mind, and revitalizing spiritual vitality. The Psalms demonstrate this centrality, with thanksgiving mentioned over 100 times, as essential, life-giving practice rather than optional religious sentiment. Paul reinforced this emphasis, instructing believers to give thanks in all circumstances, not as burdensome requirement, but as divine will flowing from recognition of gratitude's transformative power. Jesus himself modeled thanksgiving as foundational practice, offering thanks even before miraculous provision manifested. This scriptural emphasis reflects profound reality. Gratitude functions less as response to blessing and more as receptor that increases capacity to receive, recognize, and experience blessings already present. Just as radio antenna doesn't create broadcast signals, but receives what's already being transmitted, thanksgiving doesn't create divine goodness, but tunes perception to recognize goodness already flowing. That negativity bias naturally filters out. This understanding transforms gratitude from obligation-based response to strategic practice with neurological, psychological, and spiritual benefits extensively documented in both scripture and contemporary research. Grateful perception measurably improves mental health, physical well-being, relationship quality, and spiritual vitality, not through magical thinking, but through attention reorientation that counteracts natural negativity, bias distorting perception. I want you to understand that practicing gratitude amid difficulty doesn't deny problems, but defies their power to define entire experience. Jesus demonstrated this balance perfectly, acknowledging suffering's reality while simultaneously giving thanks, confronting genuine problems while maintaining grateful connection with Father. This integrated approach prevents both dishonest positive pretense that denies legitimate challenges and overwhelming negative focus that misses blessings persistently present, even within difficulty. Most importantly, know that gratitude's transformative power remains available regardless of current circumstances or emotional state. You needn't wait for positive feelings before practicing thanksgiving. The practice itself gradually generates corresponding emotions, rather than requiring them as prerequisite. Beginning with deliberate choice that may initially feel mechanical, consistent gratitude practice eventually transforms not just outward expression, but inward experience through renewed neural pathways that increasingly notice, remember, and appreciate blessings that negativity bias would naturally filter from awareness. First, understand that gratitude functions primarily as perceptual lens rather than emotional response, fundamentally altering how you process reality rather than merely reacting to it. Many view thanksgiving as emotion generated by positive circumstances, feeling grateful when good things happen. While such feelings naturally occur, Scripture presents gratitude more as chosen perspective than automatic emotion, more as input filter than output response. This distinction explains Paul's instruction to give thanks in all circumstances, a command that makes little sense if gratitude merely describes emotional reaction to favorable situations, but becomes profoundly transformative when understood as perceptual framework, applied regardless of circumstances. The command addresses chosen mental focus rather than emotional state, recognizing that deliberate thanksgiving attention radically alters how life experiences register in consciousness. Neuroscience confirms this understanding, demonstrating that attentional focus literally determines which aspects of available information enter awareness. Given information overload confronting human perception, brain must filter incoming data, allowing only small percentage into conscious awareness. This filtering happens largely unconsciously, according to established priorities, with built-in negativity bias, naturally emphasizing problems and threats, while filtering positive elements deemed less survival relevant. Gratitude practice directly counteracts this negativity bias by deliberately directing attention toward blessings, provisions, and positive aspects that would otherwise remain filtered from awareness. This attention redirection doesn't create new reality, but reveals more complete picture of existing reality that negativity bias naturally distorts. The practice gradually establishes new neural pathways that increasingly notice positive elements alongside legitimate challenges rather than allowing challenges to dominate perceptual field. This understanding transforms gratitude from occasional emotional response into consistent perceptual discipline that fundamentally alters experienced reality. The same external circumstances produce dramatically different internal experience depending on perceptual filtering, with gratitude practice systematically counteracting natural filtering distortions that otherwise create unnecessarily negative experience, regardless of objective situation. Second, recognize that gratitude creates powerful spiritual protection against toxic emotional patterns that damage relationship with both God and others. Scripture presents thanksgiving not merely as pleasant spiritual practice, but as essential protection against destructive patterns that otherwise develop with predictable progression. Paul identified this protective function when linking ingratitude directly to spiritual deterioration. For although they knew God, they neither glorified Him as God nor gave thanks to Him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. This progression reveals gratitude absence as gateway to darkened perception regardless of intellectual knowledge about God, highlighting thanksgiving as essential protection rather than optional enhancement. Similarly, Moses warned Israelites about ingratitude dangers when cautioning, "When you eat and are satisfied, be careful that you do not forget the Lord." He recognized natural tendency for provision to create entitlement rather than thanksgiving when received without deliberate gratitude practice, redirecting attention from gift to giver. This warning highlights gratitude as protection against relationship deterioration that otherwise develops through predictable entitlement progression. This protective function extends to human relationships as well. Without deliberate gratitude practice, natural tendency toward hedonic adaptation causes initial appreciation for others' contributions to steadily decline until exceptional becomes expected and expected becomes invisible. This declining appreciation creates relationship erosion, where increasing provision generates decreasing recognition, creating unsustainable dynamic that ultimately damages connection, regardless of objective contribution quality. Gratitude practice directly counters these toxic patterns by regularly redirecting attention from provision to provider, from gifts to giver, from meeting expectations to recognizing contributions. This attentional redirection prevents natural deterioration while actively strengthening connections through appreciation, expression that encourages continued investment rather than gradual withdrawal triggered by perceived ingratitude. Third, understand that gratitude demonstrates power to convert adversity into advantage through meaning-making that transforms interpretation, if not circumstances themselves. While thanksgiving doesn't eliminate life's genuine challenges, it fundamentally alters how those challenges affect you by creating meaning-based context that extracts potential benefit from even difficult experiences. James alluded to this transformative function when instructing believers to consider it pure joy when facing trials, not denying trials genuine difficulty, but recognizing potential growth within that difficulty when viewed through proper perspective. This perspective doesn't pretend adversity isn't painful, but refuses to allow pain to eclipse potential purpose, creating meaning-based framework that transforms interpretation, if not circumstances themselves. Paul demonstrated this transformative perspective when writing from prison. "I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances." His contentment wasn't circumstantial denial, but perspective transformation that found meaning beyond circumstances. This perspective allowed him to declare, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me," not despite imprisonment, but within imprisonment, extracting purpose from circumstances that could otherwise create only resentment and defeat. This meaning-making function explains how gratitude produces resilience, extensively documented in psychological research. People maintaining grateful perspective during adversity consistently demonstrate greater emotional recovery, reduced trauma effects, and enhanced growth following difficulty compared to those viewing identical circumstances without gratitude-based meaning framework. This enhanced resilience reflects not denial of problems, but discovery of purpose within problems that fundamentally alters their ultimate impact. Fourth, recognize that gratitude creates transformative cycle, where thanksgiving and blessing mutually reinforce each other, rather than operating as linear cause-effect relationship. Many approach gratitude as appropriate response after blessing received, giving thanks because good things happened. Scripture presents more complex relationship, where thanksgiving not only follows blessing, but actually precedes and increases it, creating dynamic cycle rather than linear sequence. Jesus demonstrated this principle when giving thanks before multiplying loaves and fishes rather than after abundance appeared. His thanksgiving preceded visible provision, suggesting that gratitude functioned not merely as response to miracle, but as catalyst within miracle process. Similarly, Paul and Silas offered thanksgiving through prison hymns before earthquake liberation rather than after freedom secured, indicating praise preceding breakthrough rather than merely following it. This pattern appears consistently throughout Scripture, suggesting that gratitude operates as both response and receptor, both acknowledging what's been received and increasing capacity to receive what's being given. It functions simultaneously as expression of appreciation for past provision and as expansion of capacity for future provision through perceptual openness that naturally increases through thanksgiving practice. Jesus captured this cycle when declaring, "Whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them." While often misinterpreted as arbitrary favoritism, this principle describes natural perception law, where grateful attention creates increasing awareness of provision, while ungrateful perception experiences decreasing recognition of blessing, actually present, but filtered from awareness. Finally, understand that gratitude practice produces measurable transformation across every dimension of human experience: spiritual, emotional, physical, cognitive, and relational. Contemporary research extensively documents benefits previously described in Scripture, confirming gratitude as comprehensive rather than merely spiritual discipline. Spiritually, thankfulness increases awareness of divine presence, enhances worship authenticity, improves prayer connectedness, and strengthens overall relationship with God. These benefits develop naturally as gratitude redirects attention from requests to recognition, from petition to presence, creating receptivity that enhances communion beyond utilitarian exchange. Emotionally, regular gratitude practice measurably increases positive emotions, joy, peace, contentment, while reducing negative emotions, anxiety, resentment, envy. This emotional shift doesn't reflect denial of legitimate feelings, but rather balanced restoration, where negativity bias naturally creates disproportionate attention to negative experiences without corresponding awareness of positive elements equally present. Physically, Thanksgiving practice demonstrates remarkable health benefits: improved sleep quality, strengthened immunity, reduced inflammation, decreased blood pressure, and enhanced pain tolerance. These improvements reflect reduced stress activation, naturally resulting from perceived abundance rather than threat, creating physiological state supporting health rather than emergency response, designed for short-term survival rather than long-term flourishing. Mentally, gratitude enhances cognitive function through multiple pathways: improved concentration by reducing rumination, enhanced creativity through broader perspective, better decision-making through recognition of resources rather than merely constraints, and improved learning through positive emotional state that neurologically facilitates information processing and retention. Relationally, Thanksgiving transforms connections by increasing appreciation, awareness, and expression, reducing critical comparison, enhancing perception of others' positive contributions, and creating positive cycle where expressed gratitude encourages continued investment. These relationship enhancements develop naturally as gratitude practice shifts primary attention from relationship deficits to relationship assets. These comprehensive benefits explain Scripture's persistent emphasis on Thanksgiving as essential rather than optional practice. The transformation extends far beyond pleasant spiritual sentiment to fundamental life enhancement that Scripture anticipated thousands of years before contemporary research confirmed through scientific methodology. Now, I invite you to take 3 practical steps toward developing transformative gratitude practice in your daily life. First, implement daily gratitude ritual that establishes consistent thanksgiving, regardless of circumstances or emotions. This consistent practice creates neural pathway strengthening over time, regardless of initial emotional response. Begin by selecting specific daily trigger that will prompt gratitude practice. Perhaps morning coffee, commute beginning, evening meal, or bedtime routine. During this designated time, document 3 specific things you're thankful for, with several important qualifications that maximize transformation potential. Be specific rather than general, writing the encouraging text from Sarah rather than my friends. Include both obvious blessings and hidden provisions within challenges, recognizing ways difficulties themselves contain unexpected gifts. Vary your entries rather than listing identical items daily, training your mind to actively scan for new provisions rather than defaulting to habitual responses. Add brief reflection about why each provision matters and how life would differ without it. This subtraction exercise significantly enhances gratitude impact by highlighting provision's genuine value beyond hedonic adaptation that naturally diminishes appreciation. Consider what would change if this specific provision disappeared, creating renewed recognition of its significance easily overlooked through familiarity. Maintain this practice for minimum 21 consecutive days, the generally recognized time frame for beginning habit formation. While complete neural pathway establishment requires longer practice, this initial period creates foundation that subsequent practice strengthens. The consistency matters more than duration. Better brief daily practice than occasional extended session, as consistency establishes reliable neural pathway that sporadic practice cannot develop. Second, conduct gratitude conversation that transforms both internal perspective and relationship quality through verbalized appreciation. While private Thanksgiving practice creates significant benefits, research demonstrates amplified transformation when gratitude receives external expression, particularly in specific rather than general form. This week, schedule 3 intentional gratitude conversations with family member, friend, and one person easily overlooked or taken for granted, perhaps service worker, administrative support person, or consistent behind-scenes contributor. During each conversation, express appreciation with 3 specific elements. Name particular action or quality you appreciate. Describe concrete impact this has on you or others, and acknowledge the choice, effort, and sacrifice involved, rather than merely noting outcome. For example, rather than generic "thanks for your help," specify "I really appreciate how you reorganized the files." Specific action, which has saved me hours of searching. Concrete impact. I know that took significant time you could have spent on your own projects. Effort acknowledgement. This specificity creates dramatically different impact than general appreciation, both for recipient and for your own perception through detailed articulation. For maximum transformation, include 1 conversation addressing person with whom relationship contains tension or conflict. Challenging relationships often create negative filter, where legitimate appreciation opportunities get overshadowed by focus on problems. Deliberate gratitude expression toward such individuals creates powerful perspective shift, while potentially beginning relationship repair through genuine positive acknowledgement amid legitimate concerns. Third, implement gratitude-based problem-solving approach that transforms challenges through thankfulness without denying their reality. When facing specific difficulty this week, apply structured process that integrates Thanksgiving with honest problem acknowledgement rather than choosing between positive pretense or negative fixation. Begin by clearly identifying specific challenge without minimization or catastrophizing, naming real problem without either downplaying its significance or magnifying it beyond proportion. Then deliberately identify 3 specific provisions available within this challenge context: resources, relationships, previous experiences, or unexpected opportunities that exist alongside the difficulty rather than being eliminated by it. Next, identify specific growth potential this challenge contains: patience development, compassion deepening, skill acquisition, perspective expansion, priority clarification, or relationship strengthening that wouldn't develop without this particular difficulty. This purpose identification doesn't justify suffering, but extracts meaning within suffering that fundamentally alters its ultimate impact. Finally, create action plan that simultaneously addresses legitimate problem while incorporating grateful recognition of both available resources and growth opportunities. This integrated approach engages challenge with neither naive positivity that denies problems, nor pessimistic fixation that misses available provisions and potential purpose within the difficulty itself. This balanced problem-solving practice embodies Paul's instruction to not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Note the integration, thanksgiving within petition, rather than either ignoring problems or focusing exclusively on problems without grateful context. This integration creates problem-solving approach that neither denies reality nor becomes defined by reality's temporary limitations. My precious child, the gratitude practices you've begun implementing will gradually transform not just your spiritual disciplines, but your entire experience of life itself. The change unfolds progressively rather than instantly, as consistent practice establishes neural pathways that increasingly notice, remember, and appreciate blessings that negativity bias would naturally filter from awareness. Remember, gratitude isn't about denying life's genuine challenges, but about defying their power to dominate your entire perceptual field. Jesus perfectly modeled this integrated approach, acknowledging suffering's reality while simultaneously giving thanks, confronting genuine problems, while maintaining grateful connection with Father. This balance prevents both dishonest positive pretense and overwhelming negative focus that misses continued blessings within difficulty. The transformation you'll experience through consistent gratitude practice extends far beyond pleasant spiritual sentiment to fundamental life enhancement, affecting every dimension of your existence. Spiritually, you'll notice increased awareness of my presence and heightened worship authenticity. Emotionally, you'll experience greater positive emotions while reducing anxiety through resentment and discontent. Physically, improved sleep, strengthened immunity, and reduced stress activation will enhance overall health. Mentally, decreased rumination and increased solution focus will improve cognitive function. Relationally, greater appreciation expression will strengthen connections through positive cycle, where recognized contributions encourage continued investment. These benefits develop gradually through practice-established neural pathways rather than instant transformation, requiring patience with process rather than discouragement when instant results don't appear. Like physical exercise that builds strength through consistent resistance rather than single intense session, gratitude muscles develop through faithful practice rather than occasional emotional experience. As you continue implementing these practices, trust the God who designed both neurological system that responds to thanksgiving and spiritual reality that thanksgiving reveals more clearly. For I am not only the giver, whose provisions surround you in every circumstance, but the loving Father who delights in your growing awareness of gifts already provided yet easily overlooked, without deliberate gratitude practice, revealing what negativity bias naturally conceals. Through consistent thanksgiving, you'll increasingly experience the reality described by the psalmist. Those who sacrifice thank offerings honor me and prepare the way so that I may show them the salvation of God. Yaltu for gratitude creates perceptual pathway where salvation, in its fullest sense of wholeness, healing, and restoration, becomes increasingly visible, not because it wasn't already present, but because thanksgiving reveals what has been there all along, waiting for eyes trained to see beyond natural filtering that gratitude practice systematically corrects.